I whispered I never loved him at our wedding, the mic was on, and his revenge toast ruined me. I never loved you. That was what I whispered to my husband when we had risen to make a toast at our wedding party. I said it out of malice, not because I truly meant it. I didn't realize that the lapel mic was already on, and I didn't know that everyone had heard what I said. It was meant for his ears alone, and it was only when I heard the collective gasp across the room that I realized exactly what I had done. When I tried to smile and make a joke of it to save face, Leo had done something really shocking. He laughed at first and had signaled the DJ to turn on our mics again. Because he had turned them off immediately, he heard my comment, probably knowing I was unaware that the mic had been on. And when the DJ did exactly as Leo had asked, he had raised a toast instead. I had not meant for any of the things that happened that day to happen. I only just wanted to torture him and wipe off that blank look off his face. I wanted him to get angry and react in a way since he never did anything. I felt a reaction from him would prove that he felt something for me instead of leaving me in doubt every minute, every day. It was my only chance to get him to react, especially because we were supposed to be married because we loved each other. But I thought if he heard the opposite, he might act differently this time. Ever since I've known Leo, his silent way of judging me made me feel really inferior, and I hated how he was so quiet and did things differently. I wanted to hurt him, make him react or do something, anything. And I figured in my head that the best way was to hurt him just the way he had that morning before the wedding. I was pissed, and I said it without meaning it, but instead of the reaction I wanted, it had been the exact opposite and had actually started my doom. Leo's toast, his little speech at our party instead of smoothing things over, ended up ruining me and everything I've ever worked so hard for. Leo and I dated for 2 whole years before we finally got engaged. And to be honest, it felt like I was dating myself in the relationship because of Leo. He was hardworking, rich, and quite gentlemanly too, but all that never made up for what was always lacking in our relationship. Leo had always been this person that never said much. His actions did most of the speech for him, and his employees feared him because with him, you never would know what to expect. There hadn't been much difference too in our relationship as Leo maintained his quiet behavior around me. There had also been the issue of sex too. Leo had been quite conservative and strict about not having sex. His parents apparently raised him in that manner, and he didn't want to ever be the one to break the rules, not even for his girlfriend. No matter how hard or how long I tried, he never backed out on his decision, and I couldn't keep up. I was already sexually active before I met Leo, and very much in fact. I was a party butterfly, always in one party or the other looking for the next big thing. And by that, I mean any guy who caught my interest long enough for the night or for the next few days. Catching my interest meant if I noticed that the guy was financially buoyant enough. So I gave sex in exchange for money, but don't get me wrong, I wasn't a sex worker. It was just some sort of fast way to get money instead of slaving around in an office without AC and a difficult boss. I did date people without money, though. The last guy I was with had been very good sexually, and I had not minded that he had no money until he cheated on me with someone I regarded as a friend. I wasn't hurt, but I was angry instead because of my pride. I swore never to stay with any other guy just because he was good in bed. The only criteria I needed was his wealth, and that had been what had attracted me to Leo when I first met him. He had come in with his friends, and they sat at the VIP lounge. I could tell from his appearance alone that he was wealthy, and not the regular type of wealth. From his glistening watch to the tailored shirt and trouser he wore that looked like it was only the first time he had it on. And it really was true. Leo only ever wore tailored clothes, and he never had to wear them twice, as he had a new wardrobe every month. So I did what I would usually do, make myself the center of attraction, and I eventually did catch his eye. Leo didn't approach me as I expected, though, just watched me silently and said nothing, while his friends laughed and drank. He barely even touched his drink. He was like a predator waiting patiently for his prey to walk into his trap, and I did. I stood up and asked to join them when I realized that Leo was never going to approach me. Leo didn't act surprised. It was almost like he expected it, like he had willed me to come to him. But I managed to convince myself that he was just good at masking his real feelings. He must have been excited that someone like me, who had always been swooned by guys, had approached him. Leo had not hesitated in giving me his contact when I eventually asked for it, after I noticed how frequently he kept checking his watch, and had left a few minutes afterwards without his friends. I stayed back long enough with his flirty friends to get as much information as I could get about him before I left the club that night. And I texted him that same night, too excited about getting a chance with him, especially after learning that he was single, and we talked through the night into the next morning. Although it was me leading most of the conversations, Leo would only send his one-liner replies in agreement with whatever I said. I was far more interested in him, and I didn't care that he was silent. I thought that I had hit a big silent jackpot, especially when I found out exactly how much Leo is. He worked with his father, who was one of the biggest businessmen in the States. I knew that if I could wove my way through his life, then I could get the change I was always so desperate for. So I did everything humanly possible to get together with him. I learned everything I could learn about the business so I could hold conversations with him, as it seemed like that was the only thing that held his interest for long. I learned his favorite meals, his favorite drinks, his hobbies, and everything I could find out about him, and they became my favorite thing too. We automatically slid into a relationship after 1 month of talking and crossing each other's paths, coincidentally. Leo hadn't asked me out or anything like that. It wasn't the classic couple type of relationship where a man would ask the lady out and she'd say yes before they got together. I just kind of started living with Leo. I got to know his place after pushing for a visit, and when he eventually allowed me to come over, I continued visiting, both when I was invited or not, mostly when I wasn't. I eventually started visiting in the evening and pretending I couldn't go home at night, and Leo would have no choice but to let me sleep in. The first night I spent with Leo didn't turn out as I expected. He showed me to a different room instead of his, and I expected that at some point in the night he would come to me, but he never did. In fact, when I woke up the next morning and went in search of him, he had already left for work and had instructed his driver to drive me home when I was ready to go. It happened again, and Leo had done the same thing. Even when I eventually started living with him after lying that my current landlord was some creep and he was stalking me, he still refused us sleeping in the same room. We did everything that couples usually did together. We went out together, held hands, smooched, but we never had sex no matter how hard I tried. I had even tried seducing him once with a lingerie that barely covered anything before. And instead of Leo rushing at me and devouring me like I expected, he just sat there and asked me what I was doing in that serious tone of his. I felt embarrassed and never tried again. I mean with lingerie, not that I didn't try any other means apart from seducing him directly. I was sexually frustrated, and I knew I had to do something about it. So I dressed up on a day he wasn't home and went to the club after a whole year of avoiding it, so I didn't have Leo suspecting that I lied to him. I wore my short red dress that screamed sex, and I matched it with heels, and I went in search of someone to help me be less sexually frustrated. Within 10 minutes of stepping into the club, I got my wish and was already inside one of the bathroom cubicles and having sex against the wall. It was short, but still was able to satisfy me as much as I needed. Sex without any attachment was usually the best kind, because the guy had asked nothing from me, and I too asked nothing from him. He only simply buttoned up his trousers and left the bathroom without another word to me. That became my regular thing to do after that, going to a club to get free sex without any attachments any time that Leo wasn't around. I was happy again. There was no reason for me to feel the urgent urge to jump Leo every time he walked into the room or begged him for sex. But eventually I had to stop, especially after the last experience I had with a stranger who had apparently thought it would be more fun to invite his boyfriend over so we could have a threesome. I didn't feel up to it, but he managed to convince me, and when we first started, it was quite fun, thrilling even. But eventually that thrill had turned into horror when both of them decided to start manhandling me. They tied me up and covered my eyes, and they used different devices that I had no idea what they were for, to touch me on every part of my body. I tried to get them to stop, but my mouth was covered so I couldn't make out words, and they didn't stop the torture until both of them had their fill. I left there and went home and swore never to go to the club again. Luckily, Leo wasn't home when I got home, and he didn't come back until after another 2 days, so I was able to heal up from the body pains and bruises I got from the whole experience. I stuck with staying at home for a while, too scared by what happened to go out again, but eventually staying indoors wasn't satisfying enough. I guess I wanted more. a more emotional boyfriend, and someone who communicated more than he did. Leo never said much. His eyes did most of his conversations, and in a relationship, it didn't help much. Although I see why our relationship never fully satisfied me, I never spoke about it to him. I was scared of losing him so much that I masked all my feelings and fears and just pretended to be happy with whatever he did. Losing him also meant losing the financial gains that came with being with him, so I endured everything until finally we got engaged. But before the engagement, I met Peter, Leo's best friend who had, for some reason, never been in the picture before, but showed up one day at the door asking for Leo. Peter was the direct opposite of Leo. He was talkative and was always saying something or the other every time. He even spoke while he ate. He was also a super playboy, and I got to know that when he would come over to our place and recount his records to Leo. Peter didn't work like Leo did, and relied fully and totally on his father's money. He also spent that money on women and traveling around, spending extravagantly. I was never interested in Peter at first. Truthfully, when I was still doing my side hustle, he was usually the type of guy I would typically go for. But being with Leo, who was far richer and better than Peter, didn't make me have any interest at all in him. But all that had changed overnight when Leo had done something upsetting to me, and then he left for a business trip without even apologizing for it. I was angry and sad, and needed something to rid me of my bitter emotions, so I went to the club. Forgetting my last experience just because I was too upset to stay home, I returned to the club. But this time, instead of choosing a random stranger to have sex with like I usually did before, I had seen Peter at the club, and because he was seated at the VIP lounge, he invited me in. We had some not-so-meaningful conversations that I cannot even remember what it was all about, but somehow there had been a sudden switch. I cannot tell who reached for who first, but suddenly we were kissing rather aggressively, trying to get as close skin contact as possible. It was no mistake when we both left the club that evening and got the nearest hotel, just so we could have that skin-to-skin contact that we suddenly started to crave. Peter was insatiable, and we spent most of the night repeating the same act in different ways and different parts of the room. I'm sure the cleaner who cleaned the next day would have been horrified. The amount of condoms she would have probably seen in different corners in the room was ridiculous. We didn't bother cleaning up or anything. We just left and went our various ways. Maybe my actions would have been forgivable if it had only been a one-time thing with Peter, but repeated as often as it had been, I'm sure my sin is quite unforgivable. But that didn't stop me from still sleeping with Peter as much as I wanted, and maybe I thought I could get away with what I was doing. Or maybe it was because I thought Leo was not paying any attention to me anyway. He wouldn't have noticed the amount of time I spent out while he's around, or the strange calls I got and excused myself to pick, or the strange nights out. Now that I think about it, I had been too careless with everything between Peter and I. I underestimated Leo's attentions and sharp mind. Somehow we automatically started planning a wedding without Leo asking me to marry him. Well, that had been all me. I had kind of purposely misinformed Leo's mother when she asked if Leo was saying anything about marriage. And I thought it was all cool, especially when she called Leo to congratulate him and talk about how excited she was for the wedding, and even proceeded to talk about the guest list for the wedding. Leo said nothing. He didn't even ask me what I said and why I said it. He just practically ignored the whole thing. So while I shopped for a wedding dress, our wedding rings, and even made plans with the wedding planner, Leo did nothing but the usual, which was work. So I was left to do everything I wanted for the wedding, although I had support from both my parents, and especially Leo's mother. She went with me everywhere and suggested a few changes. She never tried to overwhelm me. It was nice knowing that at least she was one person who supported me from Leo's family. Despite being too busy with the wedding preparations, I still found time for Peter. He was like some drug to my aching wound. A wound I felt was inflicted by Leo because he wouldn't even pretend with me. Peter at least cared enough to satisfy me sexually and not abandon me like Leo did all the time. Everything went well for the preparation of our wedding, and because Leo refused to have any bachelor's party, I decided not to do any either. But we both spent the night at the hotel, whose hallway was what was being used as our wedding venue, and everything had gone perfectly without a hitch. I mean, there was no problem money couldn't instantly fix. But the night before our wedding, something had happened. I went to Leo's hotel room. I wanted to give him the wedding rings that I bought. I hadn't had the chance to because of how busy he always was. But when Leo opened the door with his usual gaze, I asked him to let me in, but he refused, saying he wanted to rest and had no time to talk to me. I was hurt, and I tried to speak, but Leo had made another harsh comment before slamming the door in my face. I was so angry and bitter, and I had texted Peter to come over to the hotel that night so we could have sex, even though we had already decided not to ever again a week ago because of my marriage to Leo. I begged him to come when he kept hesitating, and eventually he had shown up. He rented a different room so he wouldn't be seen entering my room and leaving in the morning, and I went to meet him. We had sex several times that night, each time representing just how deeply hurt I was by Leo's words. I eventually sneaked back into my room when it was almost 4 a.m. The people who were supposed to help me prepare arrived, and I was made up and put in my dress. Thankfully, the makeup had helped mask my eye bag. Everything played out the way it should have from the beginning. Leo was at the altar, and standing beside him was Peter. Leo didn't even turn to look at me when I entered, and even after I went to stand beside him. He concentrated on what the priest was saying and didn't even bother sparing me a glance. After exchanging vows and we've been pronounced husband and wife, we proceeded to the reception. I wasn't happy, not after what Leo had said to me, and we barely even spoke. While people raised a toast to us, I just sat there and stiffly smiled through it all. Leo shared none of my pain. He was busy talking to potential business partners, and it was only then I realized exactly why he had gone through with the wedding, despite thinking otherwise. It was a business arrangement. Everyone that was sitting there, apart from the people I invited from my side, were all business partners. I was so upset and angry when it was finally time for us to raise a toast as a couple. I stood close to Leo and whispered that I never loved him, forgetting that I was supposed to be raising a toast and that my mic was already on. I only just wanted to hurt him as much as he had with his words. But I instantly regretted saying those words when I heard the gasp and saw everyone watching us curiously. Leo had laughed then, and after getting his mic back on, he raised a glass, and then the words that came right after shocked me even more than it did the crowd. He thanked everyone for coming, and then he turned to face me, and had then proceeded to say how he had always known that I was never sincere, and all through our relationship, he kept watching me to know when I would break and stop pretending. He told me he knew exactly what I wanted and was after the first time I approached him, and he also knew about my various visits to the club and my ending up in different men's beds at the end of each night. He even raised the glass in Peter's direction in mockery and said he knew about my affair with Peter too. He saw me entering his hotel room just the night before our wedding. He knew everything, and as he spoke, I felt blood drain from my ears. My mind was suddenly a puzzle with scattered words, and I couldn't pick any words to say. I kept staring at Leo, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything. After he was done with his words, he raised the glass to me and sarcastically said, "To my wife, happy married life." And then he drowned his drink in one gulp, and he just left. I watched him leave, but I still couldn't speak, and I didn't realize that tears were falling down my face until it stained my white dress. I couldn't believe what was happening, and it was only when my mom had gotten to me and shaken me until I was dizzy while asking the same question that I was able to think properly. I left, or rather I ran. I ran after Leo. I wanted to do something, anything at all, to make him stay. I ran into the hotel, not minding the stares I was getting running around in my wedding dress, which I realized was a bad choice now that I had to run in them. I got to the hotel premises just in time to see Leo driving off, and I tried to go after him, but it was almost impossible with the speed limit he was on. I raced back to the hotel room to change my dress and hailed a cab back home. But when I got home, Leo wasn't there. Desperately, I kept trying his number and texting him repeatedly, but he wouldn't return any of it, and he didn't return home for the rest of that day. The next day, I suddenly became the most searched. The headline of gossip columns was, "Businessman discovers wife to be cheating with other men, including his best man." I was suddenly being stalked online by different people who kept insulting and throwing jabs at me. I couldn't go out for fear of being recognized. All these while, Leo still wouldn't pick my calls or return my texts. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't pick any of my calls, including my mom's. I knew what they had to say, and I wasn't ready to hear it. I knew how badly I messed up, and I didn't need a reminder of it. I deleted my Instagram account when the hate comments were getting too much, and I had to leave the house when reporters somehow got an anonymous source to tell them where I stayed. It's been a week since then, and I've been laying low ever since in the cheap room I was able to rent on the outskirts of town. I'm so scared of being harassed, and I really don't know how to reach Leo. I know I caused everything with my own hands, and I know that there are consequences, but I really don't want to lose Leo. Update. Hello, Reddits. It's been another 2 weeks since I last saw and heard from Leo, or since my whole life came crashing down. I still somehow maintain being the headlines, everyone wondering where I was hiding after causing so much drama. My mom had sent me a simple text. She told me she was disappointed in me and doesn't want to see me for the time being, and she told me not to contact her or my siblings so they didn't get more affected by the rumors that I already brought upon them. I'm being called a whore on the internet and being dragged online as a gold digger. People keep reposting and commenting, not one single one of them trying to see things from my perspective. I've had to create another account using another name just to see what people thought of me, and their opinions seem to get worse by the minute and end up aggravating the whole issue. And there's you guys too. Your cruel and backlashing comments are almost too unbearable to deal with. Especially after I came here thinking that I will at least get some sort of help or hope, but I got the opposite. Even after explaining everything and giving my reasons, however pathetic, hoping that even though I got some reprimands, someone out there would understand why I felt the need to do what I did, why I thought that sex was the only way to make myself feel less lonely in my relationship. I thought someone would understand my desperate needs to make amends, but none of you guys understand me. You all think of me as someone with no sense and have no right whatsoever to be happy. I cannot fault you guys for thinking so. After all, I caused everything. I ruined my own life with my own hands, and there's no denying that fact, but it still doesn't hurt any less, though. It doesn't make the pain any less when I see your cruel comments and harsh sentiments. I thought I could get away with everything I did, but stupidly kept looking for means to get Leo to love me the exact way I thought a woman should be loved. And I went about everything the wrongest way possible. I started up our relationship on a lie and created doubts in Leo's mind about me, and instead of mending my ways, I kept building up everything else on a lie and kept blaming Leo for not loving me as the basis for everything I've been doing, sleeping with different men just because I was too sexually active to stop and faulting Leo. He was silently watching me self-destruct, and he knew from the beginning how much of a fool I had been and kept watching me until I finally lost everything. Words can really not express how awful I feel right now. I've always been bad at expressing myself anyways, but there really are no words to express just how bad everything has turned out. My life is now the wrongest version of what it could have ever been. I don't know if there's any getting past this because I feel so choked up by the consequences of my actions already. It almost feels unbelievable thinking about everything, especially the fact that I'm married, but my husband is nowhere around me. Or more correctly, doesn't want to be around me anymore. Our wedding had been a revenge of his. I realize that now. He never meant to live with me or be married to me forever, and he had planned to expose me at the wedding or right after. It had been a business strategy to gain more fame for his business, and I know because I see how much his company's products are now in high demand. People are probably pitying the married man who got cheated on and wanting to support him in at least one aspect of his life. His business is booming well, and it's all due to the negative publicity I brought. I see Leo on TV screen being interviewed and asked how he had been able to get past my betrayal and channeled all that into growing his business. I hear his answer, and I feel my heart squeeze so tightly, almost like it would kill me. He was gaining more money and fame for being a good man, while I was getting the opposite. Leo still wouldn't pick my calls, and eventually I stopped calling because I knew he wouldn't answer. I know he didn't block me on purpose because he wanted to punish me even further. He'd read my texts and still wouldn't reply to them, even when I asked if he would still stay married to me. He read it all but didn't answer any. It feels like everyone is punishing me for my sins, but the worst punishment I'm receiving right now is the thought of Leo moving on without me in the picture. People kept suggesting different ways for him to move past me and wanted him to get an annulment. They were even trying to fix him blind dates with their daughters, their nieces, and even their sisters. One person had even created a particular page for fixing up blind dates for Leo, and it hurt me so much seeing all those things because I have no say, not even one, in the matter, even though Leo never responded to any of the posts or comments. I've become a totally abandoned person that has no purpose or reason to continue living. Every day feels exactly the same as the previous one, dry, empty, dark, and lonely. I have no one to talk to, and no one even cares about me enough to ask how I've been coping so far. And the crazy thing is, despite everything that has happened, despite the cruelty of it all, despite the fact that I will never get to live a life that will not be filled with hiccups, I still miss Leo. I know that's hard to believe because of everything I have done, and I admit that I had done all I did for the wrong reasons, but the truth still remains that I loved Leo, and I still do very much. That's why it was so easy for me to crave his approval desperately. That's why I did everything I did, and that's why I'm stuck in this hellhole I have now found myself. I know that Leo will never forgive me, and I know that he will never love me, and I will live the rest of my life carrying that weight of pain. I loved Leo. I really did, and I wish I had been sincere from the beginning. Perhaps then I would never have ended up where I am right now. Perhaps our wedding would have truly been a happy one, with both of us taking our vows seriously and now living our lives for each other, and our kids when they do come. It hurts so much knowing that can never be my reality anymore because I've lost the chance. Update. Hello Reddits, it's me again, and this is my final post here. I've realized that even posting about my feelings to people that couldn't care less about me isn't exactly helping me as I thought it would. And I am still stuck in that dark path that is now my life. You know that saying about time healing wounds? Well, it's a lie, and I'm a living witness of that. Time has healed nothing, and in truth, it has only worsened and made the wound even deeper as it passes by. I miss Leo so much, and the feeling just keeps getting intensified more and more each day. I miss everything about him so much. I miss the little things he did that I had always regarded as normal, and I miss how easily he spent on me and never restricted me in any form from getting anything I felt I needed. I miss how thoughtful he was, even though I kept believing otherwise until I'm now faced with the real truth. I regret so badly why I ruined the good thing that was between us, and regret ever thinking that I could get away with everything I did. I regret the stupid reasons why I did the things I did, because at the end of the day, I still ended up unwanted by the one person I crave his love so desperately. I regret ever thinking that I could get Leo to look at me the same way I've always wanted him to, even though I was sleeping with other men for some sort of sick thought of getting validation. I regret thinking so badly and making bad choices, and I regret the fact that I'm no longer married to the man I love. Leo had finally gotten our marriage annulled after a whole month had passed of waiting anxiously for his next line of action. I have finally resigned to my fate now, ever since I realized that no matter what I do, Leo will never look at me the same way again. He will never love me. Everything is just gone, and just like that, I've ended my short marriage because I was selfish and too stuck up in my own head to see what was right in front of me. I have ended up self-destructing in the most horrible way, and it feels painful to watch everything that was my life not be mine anymore. I have no family, no friends, and now more definitely, no Leo. I understand far better now what it means to be lonely. In fact, I'm sure I'm the exact definition of that word. I'm surrounded by silence every day in my tiny apartment, and the only noise around me is the one in my head, which is far more than I can bear most times. I'm haunted every day in my dreams and in my mind when I'm awake by the horrible things I did to ruin my own life. My mind is like a broken recorder, replaying my wedding day every time and every day now, to the point that it has become like a permanent, painful marker that has now forever stained my life. I keep wishing that I have a second chance to fix things, but I know that's an impossible wish because life doesn't do do-overs, and I'm certainly not the best candidate to be selected for a second chance. I'm sure that whatever God is out there definitely sees me as one of the best candidates for hell instead of a chance to do things over. Although they wouldn't need to bother about that because my life on earth presently is the perfect interpretation of hell on earth. Sadly, I hope you guys learn something, and if not anything, learn that you will probably end up as miserable and as fucked up as I am right now if you take the same footsteps that I did. Well, thanks for at least reading through my story even though you dislike me. It's at least a far cry from my physical life where no one wants my version of the whole thing, be it good or bad. Thanks and goodbye.